Hi, Yara Zaru.
Hello.
Welcome to Physician Assistant Forum 101.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. This is just an informal chat to help future PA applicants trying to get into the program of choice. So just wanted to get your experience and your journey to getting into a PA school.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. I'd love to help anyway.
Okay. What was your undergrad and what were you doing before applying to PA school?
So I did my undergrad at UNC Greensboro. So it's about close to where we live now in Durham. So I did my undergrad there and majored in nutrition and dietetics, and then had to do a year internship in kind of a clinical setting. And so I did that at Duke and have just kind of stuck with it and stayed as a dietitian there on a neuro step down, neuro ICU and step down units. So I've been doing that primarily for the past 3 years.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So you've been working as a dietitian in a leading institution.
Yes.
And you already have a career in healthcare.
Yeah.
Then what was your motivation to pursue a profession in physician assistant studies?
Yeah. So I feel like a big part of my story starts out in Palestine. I was born and raised there until I was 16, and having lived here for about like 9 to 10 years now, I think there's a lot of stuff that maybe I didn't realize that were so different until I started getting exposed to more things being here. A lot of the big stuff I noticed was healthcare. Accessibility to healthcare in Palestine is very poor, just kind of living under occupation and not being able to access resources more readily. And so I didn't really notice that to be a barrier until I moved here and actually got exposed to what good healthcare looks like and what those resources look like. And so there was always that fear that a family member in Palestine would maybe undergo an illness of some sort and not be able to access good care. And unfortunately that happened around the time that I was starting to think of applying to PA school. My grandma in Palestine suffered a stroke, and having worked primarily on a stroke floor, I kind of can see what kind of resources she would have gotten that she unfortunately didn't get there. And so the PA profession stood out a lot to me then, just because of my interactions with the PAs and how much they helped me kind of ask questions about her care in Palestine that I wouldn't think to ask a dietitian.
Yes.
Yeah, while I do love my career as a dietitian, I think it's helped me grow so much just in the clinical world. I think it was limiting me in some ways too. The more time I've spent working in healthcare, I've realized I'm leaving a lot of patient interactions wanting to do more, wanting to be involved more, wanting to just physically spend more time with them. And I felt like as a dietitian, I wasn't really able to do that, and my heart wasn't fully in it in terms of what my future goals would be. And just working on a neuro floor, a lot of the floor is run by PAs. The stroke, the neurosurgery departments, they're all run by PAs. So being able to see how accessible they are, but how they focus so much on the patient, how physically they're like available for therapies, for myself, for other members of the team, for nurses especially. I got to witness what their interactions were like, and I felt more like motivated to pursue that, and I felt more excited about that profession. I felt like I was leaving a lot of patient stories where I was more interested in the clinical aspect of things more so than the nutrition part. As much as I'm grateful for it, I felt like the PA profession was where I belonged a little bit better.
Did you know about the PA profession before you started working as a dietitian, or was this a brand new exposure to a brand new field for you?
I knew about it in terms of like minor conversations, but I can't say that I really understood the profession until I was an intern at Duke and shadowing different preceptors and having them ask me to go talk to PAs and make my recommendations. That's when I started getting exposed to the profession more, reading their notes and kind of learning about what they did.
So Yara, when I applied to PA school, I'm dating myself now, I had applied to individual PA schools.
Okay.
I'm sure the systems have changed now and the process has changed. So could you help the viewers explain the process by how somebody's going to apply to PA school? What's the process?
Yeah, so it's a little different now from 2 years ago. I'm just kidding. We do a thing called CASPA. It's a standardized application portal system, and it opens the end of April every year. They're pretty consistent with that, and through it you put all your information. So you individually put in your transcript from undergrad, postgrad. You do your volunteer hours, your working hours, patient care experience hours. You do certain things that you've done like in undergrad, leadership experiences, classes, extra classes that you've taken outside of your undergraduate degree. So you put all of that in there, which is nice because it's all standardized. And then what you can do is you can include each program you want to. So there's going to be a section that says add a program, and then you can include however many you want all at once. And so once you include those, it'll tell you what steps are missing for each application to be a full circle and green and done and ready to go.
So you submit all this in one place, so you don't have to send separate to each individual program.
No. So you can do all of them all at once on this application portal. There's going to be a section that asks for recommendations. The CASPA only takes 5, and so I always say maybe look at each school and what they want, because a lot of schools want from PAs or MDs or co-workers you've worked with, but some are going to ask for an academic reference, which is something I missed, and sometimes they individually email you if you're missing that, but usually you have to have 5, so that's something to think about earlier on. And then when you add each program, say you finished 5 out of the 10, you don't have to wait till all 10 are done to submit, so you can submit the first few. If certain schools are due in July and some are not due until December, it's okay to submit those ones earlier. And then the earlier you submit it, some programs are going to come back and ask you for a supplemental. The supplementals are the ones that are separate. Some programs are going to say, oh, you can submit it in the CASPA, that's fine, and pay the fee there, and some are going to ask you to make a student account for their university and then apply to a supplemental. So those are the ones that are separate. Those are the ones that are going to be different applications, but your standard school stuff, volunteer hours, all gets put in there. It kind of calculates it for you for each program, and so if you know how many hours they want, from my experience, they wanted a minimum of 500, but the majority I've seen have been 1,500 plus. And so if you have your hours in already, it'll give you an idea of your
That's
total.
your patient care hours.
Yes.
Does it work experience, or it could be volunteer hours too?
So the patient care, I think they look for it to be different than the volunteer, because a lot of schools will specify. They'll say, oh, we want 1,500 patient care, but we want minimum 80 hours of volunteers. So, and then on CASPA, it'll specify. So you can click that it's patient care if you worked as a dietitian or a scribe or a medical assistant or a nurse, whatever it may be. It'll help you specify what those hours are, so you can actually kind of be up to speed on if you need more, or if you maybe need to wait a little bit, or if it's ready to go. So all of it is going to be together unless the school has a supplemental. I would always say when I started applying, I made a table because I was applying to a certain number of schools that had different deadlines, and so you can look at what their deadlines are, make a table, see what recommendations they want. That way you're not missing the supplemental and when it's due. Because it's nice that it's all in one place, but they're also different dates that you want to be sure that you're like sending the important ones early if you need to.
Okay, well, you can fill in. So correct me if I'm wrong. So there's one centralized process or place on the internet called CASPA.
CASPA.
C-A-S-P-A.
Yes.
And you submit your undergrad transcripts.
Yes.
You submit your application to PA school.
Yes.
There's one application to PA school.
Yep.
You don't have to apply to individual programs.
No. So
Okay.
that one application is going to have everything. It's going to have your personal statement that they're asking for. It's going to have your transcripts. Some schools are going to ask for standardized tests like the GRE. If a school asks for that, they're going to have the code of their school. So you can send it to CASPA, but then you're going to have to send it to each school. But it all goes through CASPA. So CASPA is just going to be that center place that you go to beginning of the applications process, end of April, and you put all your information in. You can always go back and review it. The only time that you can't is once you submit an application. You can't edit anything that you've done. You can add things. So say you submitted in July and then you've been volunteering since August and they don't interview until January, you can add that in, but it would be an extra thing that you add. You can't really touch anything after you've submitted it. So make sure you review it really well because it's very detailed. Sometimes there's typos, especially with the transcript stuff. It can be tricky to include everything in classes, so just make sure that you review it a lot.
Okay. So you need your application.
Yep.
You need your undergrad transcripts.
Yep.
You need letters of recommendations.
Up to 5.
Up to 5.
Yes.
You need your
Personal statement.
Talk about personal statement. What do you mean by personal statement?
So the personal statement on CASPA, from what I remember, I think has like a set question, and I think it just asks like a standard what your experiences are and what pushed you to pursue the PA profession, or tell us why you want to be a PA. It's like a 1-page, single line, kind of 12 font. I don't know how many words that is, but whatever that brings. And it just talks about what your experiences are, what led you to pursue the profession, why you want to be a PA. And so that's where a lot of people put their story, and that's where a lot of people are going to read it first. When they review your application, the personal statement, outside of kind of your hours and transcript, the first thing they start to learn more about you from is that personal statement. And so that and the recommendations, I think, were the two strongest things, or the things that need to be the strongest in your application. So every school will get that. You apply to 10 or 5 or 25, every single school is going to get your personal statement. And then each letter of recommendation, say you put all 5 in the CASPA, but one school only wants 3, they'll only make you pick 3. So you have to kind of go back in your letters of rec and see who do you want to pick out of those 5.
So you have the choice.
Yes, you have the choice. You can put up to 5 on the portal, and then I think Duke wanted 4, so I picked 4 out of the 5 that I had. Another program just wanted 2, so I picked 2. I guess it just depends on which ones they're looking for. And then if they didn't specify, I always say 1 definitely from a PA and 1 that can speak on your experience that led you to become a PA, even if it's maybe not a healthcare provider, but 1 definitely has to be a PA. I think that makes your application a lot stronger too.
Now, when I applied for PA school, they wanted GRE scores. They wanted to take GRE. Is this still the case? Did you have to take a GRE?
Yeah, so I luckily took the GRE in undergrad for becoming an intern to be a dietitian, so I've had that before, but I've talked to a lot of people now and they're still taking it. I think they don't weigh it as heavily as they do in the past, especially I think with COVID and things changing and maybe not expecting standardized tests as much. There's a lot of programs that when I was looking at them the first time I wanted to apply, wanted the GRE, but by the second time I actually did apply to them, they didn't want it. And so always look at their website and see if they want it. A lot of schools give you the average scores that they want, but honestly mine were not even in the average scores, and I still got an interview, so I feel like they don't weigh them as heavily. But yes, if a school wants it, you have to take it. It's not like if you don't take it, they won't look at your application. Okay. And they'll reach out. Some schools will reach out and say, hey, like your application is missing this. So it's a good reminder, especially if you're applying for a lot. But the GRE, I don't think they weigh as heavily now, but there's some programs that still ask for it.
In your experience, you've done this twice.
Yes.
In your experience, which is better? When you're starting gathering your information and materials, keep loading one CASPA as you get them, or have everything organized and then sit one day and then load everything so that you don't miss anything?
So the process is really long, and I wanted to originally do it like what you said, is just sit down and do it all at once, but then it gets really like exhausting and tedious, especially with the when you get to the transcript. So CASPA itself, when you open it, is divided into like 4 big parts: the one with your programs, the one with your personal information, one for your transcripts, and one for your hours, experiences, stuff like that. And so I would take one day and do each one. And so the day of the transcripts, that's all I would do, is just copy and paste the transcript, my transcript from UNCG, and put it in. And so I would give myself a day for each one. So within 4 days, I had all the stuff in there, but I will say I had them all in there because I started very early accumulating these things. So I asked for my transcript from undergrad. I had requested the letters of recommendation earlier too, so that when the application opened end of April, I was able to submit my stuff mid-May. Okay. But yeah, taking one day for each section is probably what I did and found most helpful.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for your insight. I'm sure people watching this will take notes and know how to do a streamlined application process. Yeah,
I will say if you do the CASPA again, having reapplied, all your information stays.
Oh, you don't have to do it again?
Yes, you don't have to, which was really great, but you don't have to go through the whole process of putting in your transcript again. You just put in the stuff that's new, and the stuff that you've submitted and couldn't kind of edit the first time, you can go back and edit it. So there's always like a plus with that too, is it does save you time the second time
And you can add or change or delete the programs you want to apply.
Yes, okay. Yes, you can always edit it up until you submit it and make the payment, then it's kind of final. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Yara, as a successful applicant, what advice would you give for somebody who's starting out? How do they make their application stand out?
Okay.
Because each program gets hundreds and hundreds of applications.
Yeah.
What steps can you take to make sure your application is strong, you're on time, and you have a good application?
Stand out, yeah. So again, if it opens end of April, start early. Start applications early, start your essay early, have people read it. If you think it's really strong, sometimes there's going to be feedback that maybe it's not. So start it early, have a lot of people read it. Send your requests for recommendations early, even if it's several months in advance. You have to give someone time to write a good letter of recommendation, and you want it to be from somebody that can speak on your character, that knows how you would fit in the PA profession. If you're coming from a degree that's not in healthcare and you want to pursue this, that's okay. Just get a letter of recommendation that would be kind of speaking on your character and why you would belong in this profession. Make sure your hours are in correctly so that it calculates it right. You don't want to kind of miss out on hours if that's wrong. Review your CASPA as many times as you can. There's always something that you'll miss kind of as you review it again. And then make sure every school deadline, even if it's different, you have a paper of every deadline, and that way you can submit them when you need to and you're not missing out on schools. The last thing I would say is that when you start to think about applying and you're doing it early on, look at what you have and look at what you think would make it stronger. If you've only worked in one specific area, how can you speak about the profession? You maybe need to look at an outpatient experience or a volunteer opportunity that's so different than what you're doing now, so you can show them that you're able to kind of be accessible in different settings. And so look at where your application is and how you can make it stronger with your experiences. They want to know that like you actually research the profession and their program, not just applied to like so many schools. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Great, these are good advice.
Thank you.
Okay. You didn't get accepted in the first time you applied?
No.
You did not. So you applied last year?
Yes.
And you didn't get into the program. What advice would you give to future applicants if they didn't get accepted in the first year? How did you stay focused? And how did you not give up?
Yeah, that's fair. I think there's a lot of mistakes that I made in the first cycle. So I applied the 2022 cycle, and then I applied this past last year, so it would be the 2023 cycle. In the first cycle, I applied to only a few schools. I wasn't really branching out. I also felt like my application itself wasn't strong. I think I was just trying versus actually looking at my application and seeing what I can do to make it stronger. I think once I have applied the second time and got in, I think one of the biggest mistakes I made is I haven't really branched out outside of like inpatient stuff. And so the first year applying, I only did inpatient work. And so my patient care hours were only what I did as a dietitian. And so having applied the second time, that's when I added more of those shadowing experiences, because I didn't really understand the PA profession in an outpatient setting. So it was hard for me to speak on it in interviews when I didn't really understand it, and it showed. And so I felt like it made me a stronger applicant just doing that. Other stuff I did is I started volunteering at a free clinic in Durham, and a lot of what it does is it just gives free health care to uninsured and undocumented patients. And so that felt like a little bit like home to me, just because I felt like a lot of my talking with them and counseling with them for like dietitian purposes, I felt like a lot of them reminded me of home. And so that was a really good experience. It's entirely different than working in the neuro ICU, and so that I think helped my application be stronger. And then honestly, the stress of it always stays the same. It doesn't get any better, but I do feel like I had a great support system, and there were a lot of times that I would let the stress kind of outweigh my heart and what I wanted to do. And so I always say, like, find a good support system, and I feel like I was very lucky to find that, and people always calmed me down and reminded me of kind of my heart and how much I wanted this, and not to lose sight of the stress and the many schools and the different deadlines and stuff. So I definitely feel grateful for that.
Yeah, because it is easy to get disappointed when you put your heart and soul into something and then you don't get accepted, and especially if you have a career to fall back on. I'm glad that you stay focused and didn't lose sight of your ultimate goal. Now that you've been accepted into a PA program of your choice, what are your plans between now and before the program begins in August?
I'm so excited. Ever since getting in, I've been like debating when I want to like resign and then do fun things, and every day I'm like changing the date, but I finally committed. I initially want to work and save more money as best I can, and then I want to spend a few months before school starts traveling. So I'm gonna try to go back home, try to go to Jordan, Dubai, the Middle East, just kind of throw myself anywhere anyone will take me for a little bit, and just not be in the stress of work for a bit, because I know once school starts there's going to be a lot of time dedicated for school, so I want to be able to enjoy a little bit before it all starts.
That's a good strategy, because when I went to PA school, the general instruction I was given was PA school is like putting a fire hose in your mouth and turning it full blast.
Oh my gosh.
So the next 2 years is going to be pretty stressful,
Yeah.
but it's a ride of your life. You will enjoy your program and your school, but I'm glad you're taking a break before you commit yourself to such a big endeavor.
Oh, talking to a lot of PAs, it's definitely been worded like that, so I at least want a little bit of positivity before I start getting into it.
How do you plan to balance the rigorous nature of the program and your PA school, your personal life, and the other social commitments?
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people about this. I think I just have the personality of somebody that like overthinks and stresses, and I definitely don't want that feeding into didactic year and clinical year. So I've asked a lot of people that just graduated recently, and the big comment I always get and I've always heard is like taking one day out of the week regardless of if you want to or not, and taking that day for yourself. And so as it sounds easier said than done, so I feel like I'm going to struggle. I'm going to have some back and forth, but I don't know yet what other stuff I'd be exposed to and what would work. I think going to Emory, Atlanta is a big city, has a lot of coffee shops, so that's something I like to do. So I feel like just picking little things that are a break from just the rigorous like program would be helpful. So just trying to find little bits of joy in moments of stress.
And all the interviews you had this year, were they all Zoom interviews or were they in-person interviews?
So they were all Zoom, which adds a component of stress because it's hard to see their reactions. A lot of the times they're on camera, sometimes they're really not, so you don't really know who you're talking to or if there's somebody else in the area. I think what I really liked about Emory's program is they made it a point to give us a tour and meet in person before they actually did the Zoom interview, so it helped kind of ease some of that stress because the day of the interview I was seeing people that I've met before, and so it helped a lot. But the Zoom interviews can be hard. It's nice because you're in a comfortable setting, but I always say like maybe just don't think of the surroundings, just focus on what the question is being asked. Don't worry about who's there, don't worry about what they're jotting down or the time that you have, just focus on answering it to the best of your ability.
Okay. Well, the PA profession, you see a lot of people, it's a second career.
Yes.
They've already had a career in healthcare, and then now they're branching out. And there are a lot of people who come straight from undergrad into PA school. So your class is going to be pretty diverse. And as a person who's already had a healthcare career and direct patient care experience, how do you plan to use that strength to help your classmates who are coming just out of undergrad with some patient care experience, volunteer hours?
But not so much like the patient care stuff. I think it takes me back to when I was an intern coming straight from college and going straight to healthcare. I was always really nervous, really shy, overthinking every conversation I had with a patient, and I had people who helped me practice, who stood with me while I was talking to patients and helping me kind of break that ice and that nervousness of doing patient care. And so I think that would be a lot of the stuff that I would help them focus on. Just being able to talk to patients like they're our friends, they're not necessarily, there's no difference. And so I learned that with the years that I've been working too, is I go into a patient's room, I go to make a friend. I don't go to like just talk to a patient and create that distance. I want them to feel comfortable. And I feel like once they find what is comfortable for them, they'll be able to translate that with a lot of the patients that they see. But it's definitely a learning curve, and they have so much they can teach me too. I know there's a lot that I haven't been exposed to clinically as a dietitian that I'm going to learn from them, and vice versa. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
What are you the most apprehensive about PA school?
I'm nervous about I always say this, I'm nervous about the content like of the units and what they teach in a short amount of time. Like I always say, will I forget it 2 months from now? Like, and every PA that I've talked to that graduated, they're like, no, you think you do, and then it actually like sticks. And I'm like, I'm just scared about how much information they're gonna give me in a short amount of time, because I want to be able to retain it all, but then I'm scared I'm just not gonna like be able to pick it all.
It is intense, and you learn so much in such a short time. I had the same question when I went through PA school, and the best answer I received was trust the process, trust the system. Okay. They all click. Yeah. Whatever you learn in the classroom, when you start the didactic year, they all make sense.
Yeah. And did you feel like when you were learning it and moving into the clinical year, I always ask this question, did you feel like you had to like go back and review so many things before you did like a certain unit, or like how were you able to transition?
I did go back and review a lot of stuff, but I reviewed pertaining to a particular patient. I see a condition and then I go back and review that instead of trying to memorize everything
Yeah.
and write a test. The more patients you see and the more conditions you see, everything you read kind of makes more sense
Okay.
rather than just memorizing skills.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense, because I always wonder, like, you go into like a cardiology rotation, you're like, there's 500 pages. What do I do? Like,
Yeah.
what do I study? So that's fair.
What are you most excited about PA school?
I'm excited to like make new friends, live in a new environment. I know all of us have the same end goal, so it's always nice to it's a whole competition getting into PA school, but once you're in, you have like this whole set family that you don't even have to try so hard to get. So it's nice to have a new community, a new place to kind of live and study and explore. I've lived a lot of my life in America in North Carolina, so I don't really know what's out there. So I'm excited now to commit my life here, but also be able to do it in a new area and make friends, and we all crash together and whatever comes out of it.
Good. I know it's too early in your career to ask this question, but where do you see yourself? What are your plans after PA school?
Yeah, I've been in the neuro world again for so long that I'm obsessed with it. I love neuro patients, I love the population, but I truly do not have any exposure to any other kind of field, with the exception of kind of cross-covering other units, which is very minimal. So I'm excited to see more and decide. I think working in neurosurgery with you, the surgical residency sounds fantastic. So that would be something right now I would love to go back and do, but I'm sure like with more time and more exposure to other stuff, I'll be able to really understand where I belong and what I fit in. But seeing the surgical residents at Duke now and seeing what they're doing, it's just really nice to kind of see how much exposure they're getting in different rotations. So I feel like that would be a great kind of post-education experience that'll help me kind of get stronger as a PA.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned postgraduate residency. I'm a big proponent of postgraduate PA surgical residency, or any residency for the matter, after PA school, but we'll talk about it more afterwards. I have time to convince you to come back to do the Duke PA surgical residency. We'll talk about it in second year.
Yes, Duke is fantastic. It's the home that pushed me to be here, and you guys, and working with you and having you read my essay and help me as much as you have, it would be a dream come true, honestly. So I'm just grateful for everything that life has given me.
Well, Yara, I've seen you since you were an intern, before you become a dietitian, and I've seen you grow, both as a person and as a clinician, and I think you're going to do absolutely wonderful in PA school.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to have you as my colleague.
Thank you. That means the world to me, and I feel like thank you just doesn't feel like enough. You just have pushed me so much in this career that I feel like I can actually be myself and grow and pursue something that I'm very proud of, and I just wouldn't have done that without your help and your
you took
support.
on to say that you had all the potential.
Thank
you had the drive. All I had was little nudge here and there.
And tell me not to, freak out over every interview.
Yeah. Just be calm, take it easy.
Yes.
Just to convince you to do this took me many weeks.
Yes, this was definitely a challenge to get me here.
But I just wanted to make sure that we're able to help potential applicants who are thinking about PA school, who don't know what PAs do. So I tried to make a blog and make these videos, and I couldn't think of a better person to be the first person to interview, and so I'm glad you came along. And
no, absolutely.
Well, thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And if there's anything more I can do to help people, as long as they don't lose hope if you applied before, I've been there, done that. It's okay. There's so much positivity to come from this. So if I can help anybody, I'm just super grateful to do that.
Okay. Thanks, Yara. Good luck in PA school.
Thank you.
Okay.
We did it. We did it. I didn't freak out that much. We did it.